Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the We Aim to Slay self-care series. I am your host, Taylor Adams, and I am super, super excited because tonight's guest is like incredible. I've been following her on social media for a while now. I'm like just so impressed by all that she has accomplished and all that she continues to do. So I'm super excited to introduce her to everyone and to kind of have her share her story. For anyone who's new, the self-care series stemmed out of a conversation with my mom a couple of months ago where we were talking about, our volunteer efforts and how important they are to us and making sure we're doing good and giving back to our communities. And how it's also important to like balance those efforts with taking care of yourself. Because as the old saying goes, you can't pour from an empty cup, right? So that's what we gather here to discuss is how to take care of ourselves in order to continue helping to take care of all of the people around us. So I just want to check the time. We do have a few minutes still until it is 5 o'clock. And then I will have our very special guest on. But if you tuned in last month, you know that I had some technical difficulties with that. So if you'll all bear with me, I'm going to see if I can invite tonight's guest. Let's see. Okay, in theory, I have sent the invitation. And hopefully, the wrong button. I think I did it. Let's find out, right? So it says I invited her, but we'll give her a few minutes to tune in because I do tend to start these a little bit early. I can't help it. I just get a little, overly excited. Okay, so maybe it wants Wi-Fi. Sorry, I've added a Wi-Fi component and hopefully this helps. Did it come back? Y'all, this is not my shtick. Hmm. Well, in the meantime, we'll just wait. Obviously, it is December. Tonight is the 15th. So we're getting real close to all of the like big holidays. I'm sure that there are some that have already passed. So happy holidays to everyone. I hope you all have a very relaxing holiday season and a very happy new year. I'm very excited to start the new year. One, because there have just been some cool opportunities that have popped up recently. Wait a minute. Let me stop. Hold on. And goodness, it's happening. I think my guest is here. So to wrap up what I was saying, I hope everybody has a wonderful holiday season and a very happy new year. And I can't wait to see everybody on the other side of 2025. That's also very strange to say. 2025. Crazy. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I think I'm doing it. If anybody has recommendations for maybe a more effective software on which to live stream these conversations, I'd love some suggestions because this is silly, to be honest. Hmm. All right, love. I'm trying to get you on here. It says I've sent the invitation. in theory. Here we go. I think it's working. Amazing. Hi.
Hi.
How are you?
Good. How are you
Let's turn
doing?
my volume up here.
Am I like in a weird, oh, that didn't work.
You do appear to be sideways, but I think
Okay. Did this? Yes.
there we
That's
go.
actually way better. It made me rotate it in order to join the live.
That's, is that because I have mine like long ways?
Maybe. I have no idea, but I kept trying to join and it was like, you must rotate your phone.
I honestly went live with a person like going live with me last time for the first time, and I had massive technical difficulties. So thank you for bearing with me, and I'm clearly going to need to find a better software to continue this process.
It's all right. Whatever works, works.
Yeah,
We got it.
exactly. Thank you. All right, so thank you for joining me. Would you like to take a moment to introduce yourself? I haven't introduced you officially yet.
Sure. My name's Whitley Nabintu Marshall. I am Mrs. Florida Elemental, former International Mrs. USA. I am a Still She Rose ambassador, which is essentially a wellness program for women leaders in specifically in pageantry, as well as the editor-in-chief and founder of Art Love Lifestyle magazine and designer of Art Love Lifestyle attire, which I'm actually wearing some right now. And
Very
um,
exciting.
but I'm a very multifaceted, I would say, eclectic creative, and yeah, love all things creative. I have a dance company called the Rhythm Rebels Dance Collective,
Okay.
and I've been doing that. I've been dancing for probably about 15 or more years. Well, dancing for since I was 10, but um, having an official dance company for probably about 15 years. And I'm like, sure I'm missing something. Oh, and then I have mind body compassion coaching. So um, that takes up, that's one of my many jobs. I'm also a social media manager for my husband's real estate brokerage. So that pretty much encompasses the things that I spend my time on. And but I'm extremely happy to be here. And self-care is so important. I have something called the Compassionate Leadership Project, and self-compassion is really the like foundation of what makes all compassionate leadership work, and really is the foundation for how we can thrive in every aspect of our life, as well as like how we can treat other people um, and lead. So I'm extremely happy that you're having a focus on that for a series, especially around the holidays when it can be a little crazy, um, and can be feel different for everybody. I know
Yeah.
for me it can be it can be like magical and stressful at the same time too.
Yes, I feel like a lot of aspects of life are like that, where it's both very exciting but also mildly traumatizing.
Right. Exactly. That's exactly how I feel about the holidays specifically.
Yeah, 100%. I actually love everything that you just said. I feel like you've hit on so many points that I'd like to bring up, but I'd love to start with your compassion for, I'm sorry, say it one more time.
Oh, Compassionate Leadership
Yes,
Project.
your compassionate leadership project. So, can you delve into that a bit more? How did you start that? What are some of your goals, and like where do you think you're headed?
Sure, I'd love to explain a bit more. I started the Compassionate Leadership Project in 2019. Actually, so I was recruited to pageantry in 2018, and it was very unexpected for me, but the process of preparation for pageantry really opened my eyes and broadened um, my horizons, made my goals bigger and clarified my vision. And one of those things was I was asked to plain and simple question. If you could change one thing in the world, what would it be and why? And as a very insightful and deep person, naturally, I was like, what would I change? And so I kept thinking of a million different social issues, environmental issues, um, and tracing them back to sort of the root cause of those harms and what I would do to make the most impact to change those things. And what I found for myself is that I felt like the solution to the root cause of all of those different harms was the value of compassion. And to me, what compassion takes empathy essentially a step further of feeling that empathy for whatever the situation is, but turning it into action, which actually helps take away that compassion fatigue, because it turns it from being in the problem and focusing on a solution. But I found that compassion essentially is the solution for our own mental, physical, emotional health, how we treat others, how we treat animals, and how we treat the environment. It's sort of an all-encompassing value. So that's what it was born of. And right before that, essentially, I lived in Burundi in Central East Africa, 2007 to 2008. I returned to Rwanda in 2019 in January, like essentially right before all of this. So I ended up volunteering with an organization called Root Foundation, and the founder, it's one of those super small world scenarios, is I was not connected, like I didn't go there connected to anyone in the US in Portland. I was actually invited from someone who lived between the UK and Rwanda. And she was like, hey, do you want to come for this dance retreat and volunteer with this organization? And he ended up moving to Portland, Maine just 4 months later. He already had a visa. He was one of the very first people that I had met in those first few days of being back in Rwanda. And he ended up moving to Portland, Maine, and into my house just 4 months later. And we actually, in separate places, had the same vision around having essentially like a cultural hub where people from all different cultures could come and do workshops for personal development and bridging communities through the arts, because that's something that really brings us together, is through all sorts of arts, whether it's performance arts, visual arts, or music. And so the Compassionate Leadership Project, essentially, we co-founded World Roots Culture Exchange, or a division of Root Foundation, which there's locations in Rwanda, Germany, now Maine, and Arizona.
Wow.
And the Compassionate Leadership Project is one of our programs where we teach workshops for free in all of these different subjects, from self-compassion, compassionate nonviolent communication, and that could be that separated also into like compassionate parenting, and compassionate leadership in the workplace, compassionate leadership at home. And then we also have a Compassion for the Planet initiative, and have a connection, because I'm also on the board of the Global Volunteer Recognition Program. So that's a way to encourage volunteerism and service, essentially, because I believe that service and volunteerism plays a major role as far as the impact of compassion, how you can take steps towards small steps towards big change, essentially.
Yeah, absolutely.
I hope that answered your question. Feel free to like ask any anything that
So
might come to
impressed by
mind.
everything you just said. That is so cool. Traveling to literally any part of the continent of Africa is definitely on my bucket list. I mean, I briefly went to
Highly
Morocco once when I was
recommend
a
it.
child, but like I would love, 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 love to go back as like an adult, be like cognizant of what's actually happening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's life changing. I feel like I'm still processing even lessons from all those years ago, 2007, 2008. I was 22, 23 while I was there. So, um, and now I'm 39. So, yeah, but I still feel like there's things that are relevant from that experience that are still impacting me today. Obviously, returning in 2019, I didn't go to Burundi because I was still kind of afraid of the safety situation there. Because essentially, like when the Rwandan genocide happened, a lot of the rebels fled to surrounding countries, and so um, there's still genocide happening in Burundi and Congo quite a bit. But I've been told that it's gotten a lot safer. So um, hopefully I can go there the next time and return to Burundi because they're very, very similar in culture because they're bordering their languages. They're kind of like if you had like American English and British English. There's like
Okay.
the same words,
Interesting.
but like there's some words where you say silverware or cutlery, that would be different. So,
Mhm.
um, but that's on my goal list. But I highly recommend anybody going to experience any, I'm partial to the areas that, of like Rwanda, Congo, Burundi, but also I'd love to explore so many other areas throughout Africa, and beyond. I have a major travel bucket list. I would say, as far as self-care, that's also something for me that has always been a way for me to serve both myself and others is through traveling, volunteering while I travel, experiencing different cultures, opening my mind to culture outside of what I've been conditioned
Yeah.
in. And also there's something to being a minority in a um, different culture and experiencing what that's like and opening your eyes to that um, different experience. And there's both hard things and amazing things that come along with that. So,
Yeah, absolutely. I 100% agree. So, in your intro, you had described yourself as being multifaceted. And I am particularly fond of that as a descriptor because I consider myself to be that way also. And I never have come across another person to describe themselves that way. So, what does it mean to you to be multifaceted? And do you find that those different facets have any interplay with each other, or do you keep them kind of compartmentalized?
I would say kind of both. So, multifaceted to me is I enjoy doing a lot of different types of things. And I do feel like, in many ways, our culture doesn't encourage that actually. Um, but I've found a lot of freedom through allowing myself to have all these different aspects of myself. Like so I worked for the American Red Cross for 16 years, but even during that time, like, I've always had different aspects of parts of my life. But they all do go together in my mind, but they also can feel very separate. And I think when people look at my life, they're like, wow, you do a lot of different types of things. But also when to me, they are all still kind of related in a way. Like, uh, so when I worked at the Red Cross, I sang in two bands, for example. And then I
I
went
love
into a
that.
dance company like right after those bands kind of separated. And but as a creative, I feel like I need those different parts of my brain fed or I'll go crazy. Like, I enjoy, for example, at the Red Cross, like I enjoy that is a job that included science, math, technology, um, people, like interaction with people, comforting people, uh, helping them feel comfortable when in a very uncomfortable situation, physically and sometimes emotionally and mentally. The, the problem solving I enjoyed, and even like when things went wrong, having like being in that chaos is a weird place that I thrive. But I also think that has to do with my neurodivergence. So I'll just be real about that as well. But it's a blessing and a curse in certain ways. Just like how, a lot of, I would say that in itself can be like a blessing and a curse of having these different interests and parts of my brain that I enjoy feeding. And sometimes it can be hard to focus on just one and prioritize certain things in the right way.
You are
um,
speaking my language, like 100%. Literally today, I interviewed this morning for like a very cool opportunity that not quite sure if we're there to share about that yet, but hopefully something very cool comes of it. And then I don't know, randomly decided I was going to build a new photo backdrop today. So I started that project and then I got, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes into it and was like, you know what, this has kind of become an undertaking. I'm gonna like pause and I'll go do some writing for a little bit. But then I was like, oh, I've been working on this same draft for like 3 weeks. Like I'm tired of
mhm.
reading it. So then I went back to building my backdrop and then I was like, oh, you know, maybe I'll like make myself some homemade ramen for lunch. And then we went back to the backdrop and then, oh, wait, gotta start the laundry. So yeah, I get that.
That's
My
exactly
neurodivergence is
how I
also
feel.
like do as many things as you possibly can because by the end of the day we'll have accomplished many things or at least started
That's
many
so true.
things.
That's so true. And I do feel like we're given these like special interests for a reason.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes I also think that I get the most amount work done sometimes when I'm actually supposed to be focusing on one thing over here and I'll do like 10 other things. Partially because it's like probably there's something that is like holding tension of like why I don't want to start this thing over here. Um, but I think that there's a superpower in when you're in that zone of like, you're like, I'm supposed to do this, but I'm actually doing these 20 other things that I've needed to have done too.
Yes.
Just maybe not the right priority. Um, but yeah, same thing. It's like I'll be working on the magazine, writing an article, for example, for like ever, and then sometimes I'll need to like, even within the magazine, sometimes I'll just need to shift focus to something that's more like visually
Yes.
focused, graphic design or something, you know, like looking up a different feature or, um, I really, yeah, I like using the different areas of my brain. And I think that that's something special that within neurodivergent people is that there is this ability to hyper focus sometimes, but also I've I don't think I've met someone that falls in the divergent spectrum that doesn't have like different capabilities of intelligence
Mm-hmm.
that but those all make up part of that person, all of those interests. And some people always surprise me too, like um, and I feel like we surprise ourselves because we don't always know what we're fully interested in until we ask ourselves. Just like even with the Compassionate Leadership Project, if I wasn't asked that question, I wouldn't have dove into the insight in myself to be like tracing things back deeply, thinking about different topics I care about. Uh, seeing what the root cause of those things are. Sometimes a simple question to yourself can open up a whole world of vision.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, like, just to kind of not to kind of repeat myself, I said earlier that I was working on building a backdrop
Yeah, I
because
want to see your backdrop.
um, I haven't finished it yet because, okay, so I originally just wanted to make like a little, I guess it's called like a photo light box or something, just to do like product photography. And in my head,
Ooh,
I had this vision and I found the perfect like peel and stick wallpaper to match my vision. And I was like, this is fantastic. I made my little product box and it was great. And then I thought, wouldn't it be so awesome if I had a matching one to put behind me for when I'm filming so that I mean, I love the green. I think it's really pretty,
I
but
do
it
love.
makes it very difficult for me to like coordinate my outfits for like what I normally want to wear to not be clashing with the green wall, which sounds like so superficial, but that's like one of the things that like my divergency will pick up on and be like, nope, stop. Everything's wrong.
Yeah.
The color balance is off. So I finally get all of like the pieces of the background like put together and I start cutting my strips of wallpaper and I had run out of wallpaper. So even though I like really tried to buckle down and build this today because I like wanted to use it, I couldn't even finish that process. And we like I don't consider myself to be a particularly crafty person, although I'm sure from this conversation it sounds like I am. But that's because like comparatively to my mom and my siblings, like they're all artists. They all paint or they sculpt or they like craft things either using computer software or their hands. It's like very impressive. They can all make things. And I've always been like the writer. That was always my skill. So I never considered myself as someone who could also make things. But like you're saying, like you shock yourself. I shock myself every time I just decide, like, no, I think I can do that. Like, I think I can make that myself and not spend the money to buy someone else's version of that. And
Yeah.
then sometimes it just happens. And you're right, it is shocking, but it's also exciting. It's like that's something I can kind of add to my resume. And now I know I can rely on myself when, if worse comes to worse, I know I can throw something together.
Yeah. Well, and also just like listening to you say that, it's like maybe you're also you have like a limiting belief in yourself because of categorizing. Like I know for myself, I always categorize myself actually as the weird artist in the family. It some of and also simultaneously not as an intelligent person because I categorized my sister as being so intelligent that it felt like that was her box and this is my box, and like she's the smart one and I'm the artsy one. And then it took me until probably I was like 30 that I realized it's like, or maybe it might have been younger than I might have been in my 20s, where because I would think it was through the American Red Cross and um, teaching classes and becoming like asked to be an instructor and then a biomedical charge. I was like, maybe I am smart actually. It's just also with neurodivergent brains, sometimes we'll hyper focus on, and like, yeah, on the things within our category.
Mm-hmm.
Or we'll take things very literally that were said to us maybe at some point, and then that influenced us, and then we just like self limit by accident because of something that was said like in passing or you know
No, 100%. I totally agree because when I was a kid, so I have a lot of siblings, but my first two sisters, we kind of all grew up together. And when we were kids, like I was the pretty one. My sister Shelby was the smart one, and she grew up to become a nurse. So, the math science brain. And then our sister Molly was the athlete. She could observe someone on a video doing a sport and she could instantly pick it up. And those were kind of like our boxes without
Hmm.
even thinking about it. Like I did the traditionally girly stuff. I got everybody into pageants when I decided I wanted to do that. You know, Shelby, like I said, went on to become a nurse. Like she can do math like that without even thinking about it. And I will like take out a calculator to double check that I remember 5 + 5 is 10. Not because I actually don't think I can do that math, but like you're saying, like I've kind of backed myself into this corner where not that I don't consider myself smart. I guess it's more that like I feel like I need to defend how smart I know I actually am, even against myself. And I think part of that has to do, like in a weird way, there's such a stigma about pageants, right? That especially back when I started being interested in pageants, which was like the 2006 era,
Hmm.
um, that those girls were beautiful, and that was it. They look good
Right.
in their outfits, and that's it. And unfortunately, I guess I kind of like internalized that, but like in a weird way, I became very defensive about it. And like, I know that I'm smarter than just being a pretty face, but like, why do I feel so defensive about that? Like, I should just like live my life. And actually, within the last couple of years, I think through this blog, even I've been able to kind of like bridge all the facets of my life and just kind of come to terms with the fact that, like, yeah, I am smart in like a different way than my sister is science and math smart. I'm bookish smart. She's not a big reader. I read like Russian classics because I think they're fun. You know what I mean? It's like, and that's okay. Like, we're all good at different things. Like,
Hmm.
and that's amazing, and we should celebrate that. And that's kind of why I want to keep, keep expanding the We Aim to Slay sort of brand to encompass all of these things. And I just love that like you just brought it up, like you just reached right into my mind and pulled all these thoughts out.
Well, I'm glad that you're open to it because I was a little nervous. I was like, like this might push a button. But I'm happy that you're appreciating it instead of being, I don't know what in my mind. I just
I was really nervous also, honestly, because like I really have looked up to you for since you won your international Mrs. title, because that was like the same year that I got married. And so I soon like I walked away from my wedding and was like, okay,
Oh, I
I'm
love
doing
that.
Mrs. pageant now and I can wear my
Yeah.
wedding dress. I should have worn my wedding dress this summer, but it would not have fit. So LOL.
I
um
don't think I shouldn't mind, but who knows? Maybe that will end up being a dress someday.
that is my goal, to be able to rewear that dress for a pageant someday, because it is
That'd be
too
so.
beautiful to only wear once.
I feel that about like every single wedding dress. I'm like, how do we only wear these one time? But at the same time, there is something cool about people who save theirs for like ever and then have someone in their family wear it down the line. I don't know if that would ever happen to me though, but because I don't have any kids, I do have a
I will
niece.
not like be a chill enough person to share my wedding dress, but I have been saving my first ever pageant gown since I was 11, with the hopes that someone in the family will eventually also become a little pageant girl and will wear
I love that so much. You
it.
you have to pass it on to somebody. The right
Someone
person
will
will come.
eventually have a kid, whether it's me or one of my, I have like so many siblings. I'm one of 6 kids. So like
Oh,
there will
wow.
be an offspring somewhere.
Yeah.
So
I love that.
kind of transitioning, sorry, I allowed us to get off on such a tangent, but kind of getting back onto like the idea of the self-care series, what are some of your self-care practices? And you had kind of started getting into that when you were talking about your compassionate leadership program.
Yeah, for me, self-care can look different at different times for me. But sort of some staples that I've found, like as a routine that I enjoy and have helped me to be my best, um, on the regular, I would say, are exercise, the boost of endorphins that come from strengthening muscles, working on balance,
Mhm.
flexibility. So I'm also a certified personal trainer and nutritionist, and that was born though like after I already knew that I personally had these benefits, but having clients with different goals, from like building skeletal muscle so that and bone density, from having osteoporosis or to prevent osteoporosis. There, and having like, so I had like some elder clients. I had clients who were in the Special Olympics, training for the Special Olympics. Seeing these different parts, I just saw how much exercise of different levels, different goals, different capabilities, but how it really impacts everybody in such a positive way. And it's so important, especially as we age, toward all sorts of things, but like mind, body, spirit. As I said, like, I even had a client who was had just finished chemotherapy and had neuropathy throughout her body and couldn't stand for more than 10 minutes. And but like a part of the solution to all of these ailments is boosting endorphins and things that will help cope with stress. So exercise is a big one for me. For me, though, that can look different from like I really enjoy strength training. I really enjoy yoga and dance, obviously, different movement. I love hiking and like getting out in nature. But even a short walk can be enough for me if I'm in just like walking my dog. That can be enough to like boost some endorphins. And because like sometimes even in the mid-afternoon, like when I start to crash, that can also be a big boost for me to get some energy back. Um, I also love some sort of personal development. So that could be like reading, it could be listening to a podcast, it could be diving into a special interest, or like, but usually I like to like either listen to like an audiobook or a podcast having to do with like an area that I want to improve or that will help me reach my goals. Um, I also love visualization as like a self-care strategy. I am a very like visual and kinesthetic person, but I also like I'm a big vision boarder. I probably will make one going into the new year. um, I used to be like only make them like physically, like I'd make collages and stuff, but I've become more open to like doing like a Canva digital one as of like last year. Somebody sent me their digital one and I was like, oh, I actually kind of, this works also. But I like having
Do
something
you,
that I can like place and
yeah, something that like a physical reminder or like something that you can like
yeah,
focus on? Absolutely. Do you only
exactly.
do vision boards or do you also set resolutions for the new year?
I kind of do both.
Yeah.
I enjoy the process of reflecting on the past year, like both through like I like to do kind of like highs, lows, and then I don't know if it's necessarily like resolutions, but like setting like personal development goals
Yeah.
for the next year. Um, and that can also be in like I like to have things in like different categories. So I could have like travel goals, I could have uh, business goals, relationship goals. But and then I also like in like meditation or prayer or whatever, like silence. I also like to envision like let myself dream up things essentially, but also like if I really have something I want to perform well at, like I try to envision it going well in my head too. Like even like my day ahead, I like to be like, okay, this is what I have on my plate for today. How do I want to show up for that, because I find if I do the work early and like what that will look like to show up as the way that I want to show up, a lot of that gets like some of the hard work out of the way sometimes, of what can
Yes.
overwhelm me or like feel like anxiety in the moment, because I do have some social anxiety that I don't think most people would see as social anxiety. But a lot of that can be, I feel like, prevented through mental preparation, and like thinking things through in advance, or like thinking like, what could lead to good, like thinking out not necessarily consequences, but in a way consequences of different types of like reactions, to whatever I had like that. That's why I'm like, I don't know if consequences is the right word, but um just trying to think of like, okay, what do I have ahead? How do I want to show up to those things? Do I have certain goals of like what I want to do? For example, like if I go to an event, I might be disappointed in myself if I end up being like stuck in like my anxiety, and then I don't end up um, like networking, or I don't end up feeling confident enough to have the conversations that maybe were part of my goals of being at that event. So sometimes I have to like get the anxieties out in advance and be like, okay, this is the attitude I want to show up as. This is how I can get myself in the zone for that moment. Because also sometimes that can look like even just like having like a tea before going, so I have a little bit of like an energy boost, and not showing up. Um, like sometimes that can be enough to give me the boost I need, for that event.
Yeah.
Um, but I
Honestly,
also
that's
love journaling as a way to both like process through my own thoughts, right, or sometimes just like brainstorm out things. But I enjoy journaling as a way to, yeah, kind of process things through. Sometimes I allow myself to just like not make full sentences, and let go of my own self rules around journaling, because sometimes my mind, I feel like, almost speaks fragmented. And so if I feel more like I can get more out if I allow myself to not be focused on like having it make sense, because
I
that's
think
not
it's
always the
funny
purpose.
that you said exactly that because I also am a big journaler. Like I said earlier, I'm a writer. My degree is in journalism. Like having a notebook in my pocket or in my purse is just like part and parcel to who I am. There's one in my car in case I have a good idea while I'm driving. And like you're saying, journaling to help kind of work through what's going on in your mind. That's something I've always done. One of my roommates in college was really into bullet journaling. I don't know if you've ever tried that, which I
I
always thought looked very
I
cool
don't
because
know.
it's
That
like,
might be kind of what I do, but not knowing that
so
that's a
there's
thing.
no, like basically you just get like a blank notebook and you design your own template on every page and you
Ooh.
can, add like borders and like a category and like there's a box and like maybe you put like what mood did I have today? So you add like different smiley faces and you color in the one that you felt that day or something. Like it's really a build your own journal sort of setup. And when
Uh,
I was first introduced to the concept, it like overwhelmed me. I was like, there's no structure, there's no lines. Like, where do you write? How do you keep it straight? And someone had like gifted to me years ago a totally blank notebook that was like the paper was handmade by someone. Like, it was a very special notebook. And I, my handwriting is very, very free flowing. So like without lines, I feel very just like wild. But this maybe 2 years ago, I started using that notebook, like you're saying, just to keep myself organized, but specifically for We Aim to Slay. Whenever I had an idea, or if I was making a to-do list or a we've already accomplished this week kind of list. And I've incidentally started, or accidentally rather, started bullet journaling because I just like draw lines where I'm like, okay, this was yesterday's notes. Okay, this is today. And like I still date things because I still have like a that sort of control
Yeah.
issue. Like I just need to keep that level of structure. But yeah, just like
Well, it's
letting it
nice
get free form.
to date things for like if you do have a reference back, um, or like look through to see like what was happening at this time. It's it can be nice to have dates. Like, and sometimes a little bit of organization, but I love the idea of bullet journaling. Um,
It looks really, really cool. Like there are some videos of people who do it on
I'm gonna have to
YouTube and
look
they
for that.
use like washi tapes, like make their borders and they put like stickers in it and they have like special markers. It's beautiful. You know, I probably should just like let go and try it because I probably would love it and it would also allow me to have a kind of like everyday creative output that for some reason I just like I really restrict myself to like videography, photography, styling when I clearly am interested in doing so much more than just those things. I think it's also time, you know, like there's
Yeah.
only so much time in the day.
Yeah. Well, and sometimes I know that if I have a big vision, sometimes it's hard to
Mhm.
like think what your starting point is because you're like, I want it to be this big thing. um,
Yes, I feel like I've gotten better with that as I've gotten older. Like I just turned 29 in September. So there have been moments in the past where I had these great ideas, and they were great ideas, but they were grandiose. They were too much for one person to do, especially like, you know, even thinking about what I wanted my college thesis paper to be on originally was such a cool idea. But as some of my professors very wisely pointed out to me, they're like, there's no feasible way one person could do this in the amount of time you have. Like, this is a PhD level project because you need years and grant funding to accomplish this. We're not saying don't do it. We're just saying like you cannot physically do it now. And I was stubborn. I thought that my poo didn't stink, and it blew up in my face a little bit. You know, I ended up having to do something that wasn't what I was interested in. You can tell that I didn't care as much because I kind of, you know, like didn't get my way. And you know, I had to face the consequences of my actions with that, which is like very frustrating. But then I remind myself, like, as a freestanding adult, I can go back and like little by little start working on that project again. Like, just because it was an idea that 20-year-old me had all those years ago, the first time I read something by Vladimir Nabokov, doesn't mean that adult Taylor, who also has a million things on her plate, so I don't know where she thinks that project is going, but like that is something that I could get back to. Whether I get back to it tomorrow or I don't pick it back up again until I'm in my 40s. Like that, I love the idea of like putting a project on the shelf rather than like retiring an idea because you can always come
I love
back to your
that.
dreams, you know. Sometimes there isn't enough time. You do have to put things to the side, but you can always get
Hmm.
back to them. You just have to go back.
That's true. And like everything's evolving. So like you might need the idea that from your 20s in order to um, know the next steps in your
Mm-hmm.
mid 30s. Like you never know, like when, like it's still connected. And if you're passionate about it, I would say go for it. And now I want to know what your thesis is. Like tell me right
So what I
now.
actually ended up turning in was a commentary on how the book Lolita and other pop culture references perpetuate the infantilization of women. That was my angry feminist rant that I turned into my misogynistic professor, and he was not cool with that. But my original idea, I had read the
I
book
love though how your
Pale
brain
Fire.
works as far as getting back at him. That is so
In
funny.
my own weird way, I was like, "You're the problem with society, dude, and you should have let me write my paper." But my original idea had stemmed from I read, also by Nabokov, the book Pale Fire, which is a wild ride of a story. It's one of my all time favorites. It is a poem inside a book inside another book, but it's all one story. Well, technically there are three stories that overlap, but I will get too much like it lost in a spiral if I get into that. So one of the framework stories is that there's a crown prince of a made up country, and the country goes into a rebellion. So when he's like fleeing for his life, he takes the crown jewels with him and he hides them somewhere in the world before he ends up, where all three storylines conjoin. And even though his country is a fictionalized place, all of the places he references where the crown jewels could be hidden are real. So, what my thesis was, because I double majored originally in journalism and literature, and in my school, if you had two majors, you had to do two thesis projects unless you could figure out a way to do one that satisfied both. So I was going to do a journalistic style literature paper on where I thought the crown jewels were hidden. And I was going to interview other Nabokov experts to kind of talk about like, where do you guys think they're hidden? And the literature board thought it was the most original and exciting thing they'd ever heard. And then the journalism board was like, that's not journalism. Like, unless you're actually going to these places and you're digging in the dirt, that's not journalism. So that's not what happened. But maybe eventually I will get to that when I'm
Yeah.
a real adult.
Well, and you could also like plan out those trips and take it in like small increments, because that might be the best way for that to actually go out, and then you could tie in the journalism aspect.
That's a good idea, actually.
Because it's like, yeah, you might not have been able to do it for your thesis because you couldn't actually physically go to all those places, but it's like if you plan out each one of those things, you could tie it in, but just have it be focused in that
That's actually a
one.
really good idea. Now I kind of want to go read the book again and make a list and start my plans. Some of the places I think, like you were saying earlier, just about like safety and what's going on in the world, it might be a little difficult right now.
Yeah.
But
But you
some of
could,
those places, heck yeah.
you could just see some of the, like, prioritize it by where you want to go.
Yeah.
That's what I would do.
100%.
It's ooh, out of all these places, I want to go there. That's how I'd start.
That's a good idea. I should do it like that. If I'm going to go anywhere though, like whether it's for that project or not, it's going to be a beach. I want to go somewhere warm. I am tired of the winter. And
Come
I feel
visit
like
me in Miami Beach. That's what you need to do.
yeah,
Yeah.
100%.
Because, yeah, I can't. That's how I ended up here, is because I can't do the winter. Um, I did my time for lots of years and gradually increased my time through and traveling in the winter, because my dad used to live in California. So I used to group all my vacation together at once. Because working at the Red Cross, you end up with a decent amount of vacation, but I also did 312. So even if I wanted to have like almost a week off, um, I could kind of make that work even without taking vacation. So I just grouped all my vacation together in the winter. And then now I work for myself and for my husband. So we've figured out how to do everything remotely. So we just I think, I don't know if you know actually, that for 2 years, so like this year and the year last year, we came to Miami Beach for the winter. The 2 years prior to that, we lived out of our camper trailer and traveled across the country and back
That is so
for
cool.
4 months.
Like my mom and I were literally talking about doing that this morning. We are constantly sending each other videos of like, hey, we should like buy an old school bus and refurbish it into a miniature house on wheels.
It really was, like, I recommend to anybody to at least do like one cross country trip, because there's so much in this country that like you just don't know about until you drive through it, and then you have time to process through it when you're driving. Um, and there's just, yeah, so many different cultures, subcultures, um, like national parks that are all so different, that you're like show up and you didn't know what to expect, and then you get there and you're like, I can't even, like, how did this even happen? Like, don't even know. Um, Like there were so many experiences like that where it's just like, oh, like these are along our route, so let's go do that, and just like not really knowing fully. Uh, but even if there's photos, it's different than being in it
Being
and
there.
seeing it and traveling to it. And um but yeah, I think that it's amazing. It's also a great way to like get to know whoever you're traveling with on a deeper level
Mhm.
too. um
It's also a
I
great way to get to know yourself
I
and
was just gonna say that.
yeah, and like how you'll react to certain things. Like, so my mom and I we just drove to Mississippi in late October, and we, like you're saying, we purposefully planned our trip so that we could go camping in the Great Smoky Mountains down in Tennessee because I, one, had never been camping before, and two, I'd never been to the Great Smoky Mountains. Neither had my mom. And it was incredible. And like, even though I did record a lot of that trip and I recorded a lot of us like being at the campsite because I made a vlog that's up on my YouTube channel, you're right. Like, seeing the little screen amount of that experience, like it's not called the Great Smoky Mountains for no reason, y'all. It legitimately, as soon as you touch those mountains, you smell campfires. And like,
Wow.
not just because people are lighting campfires, but because there's like, we looked it up. There's like some sort of like chemical reaction between like the air and whatever is coming off of the trees, that it creates this like blue haze that
Wow.
just hangs along the mountains. Like, they're legitimately smoky because of science.
Yeah,
And
I mean, I haven't been to the Smoky Mountains yet. That's one of the ones on Dave and my list because, yeah, we want to do at least one more cross country because we've done like twice the southern route,
mhm,
and then we went through the mid route, which I think we'd like to do that again too. But we haven't done the northern route at all.
mhm.
Um, but today actually we were talking about going maybe starting in Miami Beach instead of Maine,
Yeah.
and um doing kind of like this kind of route. Or maybe from your view, it might be more of this.
I
um,
I'm so directionally challenged. Like, I'm going to Florida next week, like we're saying, taking time for ourselves. My mom and I and our dogs are going on a little vacation next week because I work for a high school, so I have a very
oh, yeah.
flexible vacation schedule, which is awesome
And you
for.
need vacation.
Do not get me
Like,
started. Honestly, the
yeah,
longer
flexible,
I
but
work
there's a
at a
reason why they give you that much vacation.
yeah, the longer I work at a school, the more I'm like, maybe I'll just have a lot of dogs, you know. Children are nice when you can give them back to someone else.
Yeah, I've been torn on that I mean, I've been married for 11 years, so um, but I think that because I'm like, part of me, it's like kids sound, it would be amazing. But then there's like this other part of me where I'm like, the second I think about actually having a child, I'm like, that would ruin everything.
Well, just think about how much my sisters and I basically replicated like the WWE when we were kids. When we decided that we were having a fight, there was nothing that was going to stop us except the fear of our mother's wrath. If someone got too hurt, like, do we need to get mom or is mom going to show up?
Right.
Either way, it's not good. If mom has to know this happened, we've made a mistake. You know? And it's like, I don't know. Like, I'll never forget. I was maybe a sophomore in college. My Not the sister right after me, but the one after her called me and said, "I'm at school." And I was like, I figured as much. It's like a weekday. And she's like, "Well, I just saw our other sister in the hallway wearing your those shoes that you love." And so I like immediately called my mom and I was like, "You need to go to the school and get my shoes back." Like my mom was going to stop whatever she was doing to go rescue my shoes from my sister. And I think about moments like that and I'm like, no, I cannot be the guy that gets called for those things. I have really worked on my patience as I've gotten older, obviously, because I now work around teenagers who say crazy things like that all day, every day. but I don't know if I could be called, like cold called in the middle of the day by a relative, answering because I'm assuming there's an emergency and they're like, go get my shoes back.
But I bet that you're like patience you've learned also through being a teacher, you'd probably be able to respond like in a probably humorous way of like, I'm sorry that your sister has your shoes. I am not able to rescue them. That is not a priority. Do
Yeah,
not call me again.
right.
Goodbye.
Definitely have more patience in working at the school, but honestly, the greatest blessing is that I'm not technically a teacher. I'm a para. So I can just be like, you know what? I need to go to the bathroom, take a quick 5 minutes and come back. And I'm like, you know what? I'm fine.
Yeah.
Everything's fine. The kids are crazy, but it's okay. They're only going to get worse, and that's not my problem.
Yeah. Anyone who can work as a teacher in high school or middle school, or really any teacher is a saint in my eyes.
Yeah, sometimes some obviously there are teachers there who have had much more experience than I have, and I'm so impressed sometimes by how they'll handle the things like it's not even it's not even because like kids are saying things like from a quote stupid place because I don't think there's such thing as like a stupid question unless you're like doing it on purpose to try to be funny. But sometimes they use this language that I don't even understand. And I'm not that far removed from being like a teen. Yeah, I'm like closer to 30 than closer than I am to like 15, but I'm only 29 and my youngest
Yeah.
sister is 16 or just about 16. Like I do have half a finger on the pulse. But the things they say to me sometimes I'm like, I don't know what that I can't even begin to answer your question because I don't understand what the words in the question are.
Exactly, you're a saint. I just saw Debbie. Hi, Debbie. She says
Oh my gosh,
she was
yeah,
a special
gotta look and see if
education
there's
teacher for 20 years from K through fourth
okay.
grade. Yep,
Although the
yep,
younger kids are a little bit more fun. So sometimes they work at the summer school and I'm with like the second or third graders and they're still excited about school. Like school
yeah,
still makes them excited. They still have like a reverence for the adults in the room, regardless of if you're the teacher or the para or
yeah.
what have you. Whereas in the high school, and I feel like I talk to my coworkers about this all the time, they think that we are part of the furniture. They just think we live in these rooms. It's like I don't even so we had a substitute in one of my classes the other day,
And it's not
and kids were
cool
like
anymore. Like,
that
yeah,
I talk to my mom about this all the time. It's so weird to go from like my pageant blog life, which definitely exists as like the main life on the weekends when I have the time to really devote to it. And then going back to basically being a nobody in my like at work. It's like such a weird dichotomy. And it kind of, I don't know, like on the one hand, I love it because like I don't have to wear makeup to work. Like I probably didn't
hmm
have to put on this much makeup today, but I like putting on makeup. That is
yeah,
a form of self-care for me, right? So, but when I get up at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning to get ready for work, makeup is the first thing getting crossed off the list of things to do. So, and it's freeing to know that I can go to school with a bare face and a high bun, and I can wear my Doc Martens, and I can be kind of comfortable, but I can also like pull a look if I want to, and I can come wearing heels, and the kids will
right.
all be like, "Yes, your outfit," but also the teachers are like, "Why are you dressed like that?" I'm like, because it's on me and I wanted to wear this. Like, I don't know, because I'm going to take pictures on my lunch break for my blog and I need to look cute.
Like today, I felt like being cute. Okay.
It's one of my facets. You just have to accept her and keep it moving.
Yeah. I agree, though. I think, like, for me, makeup has also been both a form of like artistry, self-expression, but as well as like self-care. Sometimes you know, if I'm not in like the best mood, or also if I'm just like feeling grubby, sometimes I'll just be like, okay, I'm going full glam, and I might feel like it can be transformative for like how you show up. Even if
Mhm.
it's just for yourself, like can just feel better. My mom used to always say that, just makes me feel better. It's for me, not for anyone else. And because my mom
Yeah.
loved, like, she wouldn't leave the house without glam on. She was that kind of, I'm not quite that there, but
I was like that in high school. Like I really had a complex about it in high
I
school. But then in
did too,
college,
actually. Yeah.
like in college is actually when I went curly, like naturally curly. I used to straighten my hair and I did chemical straighteners and I had a weave and
I'm
I
so
used
glad
to wear
you
wigs for
stopped
a
doing that
while.
because your hair is
Thank
amazing.
you. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Honestly, it's been like a really cool experience, like learning about my hair because I feel like I've learned so much. One about like self-care and like just really taking care of yourself, but also my like own culture. So I'm mixed. I'm half black and I'm half white. But I don't know my dad. So I was raised by the white half of my family, which they're amazing. I love them. And I'm so blessed. We've had so many opportunities because of just like the people I grew up with. Very lucky in that regard. But through learning about how to take care of my hair, I learned a lot about the rest of my backgrounds. And it was hard at times. I had to like figure it out for myself, but I did have friends that I could ask, and they were always very helpful and very patient with me while I asked the traditionally silly kind of questions, or like, I guess questions that you'd be asking when you're like 11, 12, 13. And I'm like 18 or 19, 20, being like, I don't know what my texture is. Can you help me figure that out? How do we figure that out?
I'm so glad you had support for that because I'm sure like that's probably complex, identity wise and expression wise, like on many levels. And um, so I'm glad you had supportive people that you felt safe with, um, to ask those hard questions because I feel like it's so important. I think I told you that, my goddaughter is also, half black, and like I literally, when you won, I sent her mom your photo and was like, you need to share this with Ava because it's so important to have, representation of different hair types, especially like she, um, lives in a dominant white community. And so, there's a lot of her own like self-questioning around beauty and beauty standards and things like that. And so it's so important to have women like you who are representing on a pageant fashion stage, and for people like her who are, not sure, it's like your experience literally will directly help, girls like my goddaughter. So I'm
That's
so
so awesome to hear, but it's also like so I feel like it reinforces like why I do any of this stuff because I was that little mixed girl growing up in Connecticut, predominantly white place, not knowing like I didn't know my hair was curly until I was like 20 years old. And I definitely didn't think it was going to be this curly by the time it I never thought it would be at this point, let alone that it would be this curly. And when I was, coming of age and like really trying to learn those things, YouTube was like really big. I was looking for tutorials, how to do my makeup, how to do my hair, and I could never find anyone that looked like me. Like everybody was either like white with straight hair or they were really, really dark with a texture that was not mine. So yes, some of those tips and tricks might work on both sides because I'm mixed, so it can kind of go either way. But these are focuses for extremes that I am not a part of. I am kind of like weirdly in the middle. Like I have a lot of hair and it looks really thick, but it's actually like the thickness of the strands differs going up and down the strands. Like if I straighten my hair, you can feel it that some sections of a single strand are thicker than other sections. I have a curl on this side that curls in a square. I don't know why. I don't know if that's like my mom's Irish curls coming through or my dad's Nigerian curls coming through or the whatever, but it does what it wants. And that's why I keep doing We Aim to Slay or pageants or really anything to try to be like out in the public eye, because I know there are people out there in this world who have had similar upbringings to mine where they don't know about their whole background. And there's no shame in that. There's also no shame in
Mhm.
asking the questions. I think that's another
Yeah.
thing, that a lot of people are afraid to ask the question because they're afraid either to come across as ignorant or to be labeled as, like as like kind of a blanket term, like a racist or like a prejudice. And you run a higher risk of being bigoted by not learning something new. You don't have to
Mhm.
convert, you don't have to like agree with whatever the information is. You just have to take that moment to kind of ask the questions. Be like, listen, I don't get this. Can you explain to me what the hype is?
That's so true. Yeah, it's like we're holding ourselves back with fear of judgment, when really, yeah, like questioning is so important. But it's also important to have, yeah, people who can take questions
Mhm.
in a loving and accepting and non-judgmental way, and take those with compassion. And so, because yeah, there's, especially in this like divisive world, of where there's cancel culture, where there's you know different perspectives that none, like all of them are valid, um, and we need to be able to have conversations and learn from one another.
It's also okay to like, if the conversation does get heated, to take a step back and be like, whoa, I think we need to take a break. Like, let's both
Mhm.
regroup, get ourselves back down to like a more content, happy level, and then let's try this again. Because sometimes it can be as simple as just a miscommunication, and sometimes it's like, okay, we are never going to agree, but that is okay, like at the end of the day, we can walk away from this saying that we tried, even if it takes us a couple of tries.
Yeah, and sometimes the lessons don't come till later, just like how it's like, I lived in Burundi in 2007 and 2008, and there's still things that like I'll think back to, almost 20 years later, that I, you know, and I'm sure I'll be still thinking about those things years from now, where it's, sometimes you don't know how your impact is impacting others, but yeah, you're like, everybody's words and voices hold power and are important, when they're used you know, for purpose. Um, yeah, I love everything that you're doing though with We Aim to Slay. I'm definitely gonna have to send my goddaughter some of your videos.
Thank you. Yeah, and you know what? Like, I should probably figure out how to pin to the top of my website, because I think over the summer, I put how I style my hair and the products I use, and it's all linked there. I'll share that one again because that one's a good one.
Yeah, I'm like send that one directly to me too, because I will. There's multiple people I would send that to.
For sure. I even have a post, and this one actually is coming up. This one is going to be like referenced in not this week's post, but next week's post, about how I protect my curls when I straighten my hair. Because it doesn't happen often, but I do straighten my hair at least once or twice a year.
Yeah,
So,
well, it's nice to be able to style it in different ways, and protecting your strands is like so important, especially with curly hair. Like I have, most people wouldn't know because I straighten my hair regularly, but I have like wavy hair that can get curlier or straighter depending on how I do it. But my hair texture is extremely different than yours, but it is, because it's curly though, it's like even more important to protect it because it can damage more easily. And my strands are thinner, so it's even like hair protectant is so important, and getting to know like how to take care of your hair and protect it is so key.
One of those like trial by error kind of processes, because
Definitely.
no matter what, like even if you find someone with similar hair, it doesn't always work. Like my mom has very curly hair also, but not like mine. And her hair loves oils and oil-based products, and my hair hates it. Oil's too heavy for my hair, which seems like so counterintuitive that my little Irish mom is like, I need a heavier oil. And I'm like, how about a cream? I have a nice pomade. How about a wax?
That's, yeah, I want to see your videos. I'm excited. I just saw Debbie wrote several things. Hold on.
Oh, I've been so bad about the comments this time, and I also kind of lied to you because it's been well over an hour. So I apologize.
It's okay. Those things happen. But
Let's see. I'm
Debbie
trying
said her
to read these comments.
youngest granddaughter's hair started to curl at the age of 2. Now it's so super curly, and kids tease her because they think that she's of a different race. I tell her, you know that you're not, and just ignore them, because no matter what, your hair is absolutely beautiful, just like she is, even as she's reigned as a queen for 2 organizations.
See, that's like the first part makes me so sad because I don't know if I was ever made fun of specifically for my hair, um, because I tend to just be very, and maybe this is the sort of like blessing and the curse of being neurodivergent, right? Is that I was just like too focused on what I was trying to do or what my interests were to really pay much attention to what people were saying, which is good, but also kind of silly. Hindsight's 2020. But it just makes me so sad that even today in 2024, people are still butt heads about our hair, as if that is something anyone has control over,
Yeah.
ever. Like even
Yeah, or even like the second part of like, of thinking she's of a different race, like either one of those, it's just so sad to hear that those would be something um, that someone's being teased for.
to be
But
seen as things that are bad.
exactly.
That's just
Um,
so it's
so,
heartbreaking to hear.
hmm
But you
But
know
that's
what? Actually, I
exactly
take back
why,
what I
like,
just said
where
because that happened to
representation
me this
does
year
make
at
such a
school.
difference, of like positive, happy, healthy role models, with hairs of different textures, skin of different colors, having that representation of diverse body types, skin types, ethnic backgrounds, um, even like class backgrounds, like
Yeah.
I think that having role models uplifted is, and those voices amplified, is so important for those exact reasons.
Mhm. Exactly. And I mean, like, even you had mentioned before, like how very divisive everything feels right now. And it really, and you're right, it does feel that way. But it's so important to have, like you're saying, those role models, those people that you can look up to that can kind of help
Mm-hmm.
remind us that we can all be brought together, which is one of the things I love so much about pageantry is that, like you're saying, like everyone is different, whether they're coming from a different state, a different town, a different
Mm-hmm.
country. We're all from different backgrounds. We all have different families. We all practice different things in different ways for different reasons. And it's so interesting because we're all the connective tissue between all of us, I would say, is the fact that we're all determined, we're all motivated, we're all trying to accomplish something bigger.
Exactly.
It's so interesting to hear the why behind those things.
I agree. I think that's definitely one of the things that has drawn me into pageantry and kept me in pageantry, is um, there brings that hope of unity around values and service. Um, and yeah, people of all different backgrounds with different beliefs and in ways that they envision positively impacting the community, but everybody's working towards something positively and are generally willing to listen to one another also. I feel like there's a lot of hope within that community of having conversations that might not be had otherwise, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, 100% makes sense. I mean, I think for the same reasons, that's why I've been coming back to pageantry for nearly 20 years now, is that like, yes, I love the glitz and the glamour aspect, but if I just wanted to dress up and wear a pretty dress, like I could just be working on my blog. I don't need to go travel to all these places and spend, the amount of money that we spend to do this activity. But it is the idea of having those conversations, the fact that you never know who you're going to end up networking with or what connections you're going to make. And not even just in pageantry, like I highly recommend that if you are interested in something, like branch out. I joined an Instagram group earlier this year because I started learning how to surf a couple years ago. So I started learning how to skateboard so that I could practice when I don't get to the beach, because I don't really live conveniently near a beach. And through that Instagram group about skateboarding, I learned about one of the organizations that I volunteer with now. And, it's just making those random connections, finding that little spark, that connective tissue to build really a better world, a better tomorrow. Not to be the world peace girl, but I mean, like at the end of the day, we are kind of all working towards that.
I was going to say we are kind of all the world peace girls, but it's but I love that you made that connection through a skateboarding group. That's so cool. You really never know where you're going to get opportunities.
Exactly. And you never know where an inspiration will hit or when or why. Like, and how you were saying, like, you can't always understand the lesson until much later in your life. And it's like, you just never know. My grandmother always says, never say no, whether it's trying on an outfit or having an experience, taking an interview. The worst that happens is you learn something about yourself, which is that you're not interested in that. Best case scenario, you've made a connection for the future, and you never know when or where or how or why that connection will be important.
I love that. That's so true. I'm a big believer in everybody that we encounter that we're supposed to for some
Yes.
reason, whether we know it now or later or the reason now or later, or we might never know, but maybe the other person knows.
There's a tattoo like right on her collarbone that's backwards on her so she can see it in the mirror, and it says something to the effect of like, never a mistake, always a lesson, or like always a lesson, never a lesson, always a blessing, something like that, to just sort of like reiterate the idea that like it happened for a reason. We don't always know what the reason is. Maybe it's a learning reason, maybe it's a growing reason, but there's a reason. There's
Yeah,
always a reason.
I agree 100%. I'm so glad that we've had this time to talk. I know that it has gone longer than it's been a fun conversation.
It really has, and firstly, I'm so grateful that you were even interested in being a part of this. So thank you. And then I'm equally grateful that you were willing to have this sort of long-ranging conversation about life and its intricacies with me. So thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. You're doing amazing things. I'm so excited for you and to keep following you and yeah, keep sharing your light.
Thank you. I'm trying, every day we get out there, we do a little something more.
We aim to slay.
Exactly. Thank you so much, Whitley. I hope you have a wonderful rest of your evening and of your 2024. And if I don't talk to you before the end of the year, I hope you have a wonderful, happy holiday.
You as well, and Happy New Year.
Yes, happy New Year. Can't wait to see your vision board.
I was gonna say we'll have to share our vision boards and reflections.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Have a great night.
You too.
And thank you to everybody who is tuning in. Debbie, thank you for all of your wonderful comments. It's so exciting to see people share their thoughts and their reactions as we have these conversations. So thank you all for tuning in. I really appreciate everybody joining me on this We Aim to Slay journey. And until next time, this is the self-care series. Thanks so much, you guys. Have a great night.